A handful of things got more expensive on this April Fool's. It is no joke. It's going to cost you 6% more to heat your home or heat the water you have hot showers with. It will cost you 2.9% more to ride a BC ferry. As well, if you are buying liquor at the grocery store or in other places, many prices on alcohol have gone up. Now, I will tell you that we've been saying between $1 and $6. The government has been quick to get on us and say, hold on a second, it's not that high. And for most items, it's about a 10-cent increase. I'll leave it to you, the consumer, to determine exactly what the price increase is of your favorite alcoholic beverage. But no doubt the people these price hikes hit the hardest are the people with the least amount of money to spend. And typically those are people who earn minimum wage. Irene Lanzinger is the president of the BC Federation of Labour, and she's joining us from our Shaw Tower location. Hi, Irene.
Hello, Jill.
Back in November, you launched a campaign. Jim Sinclair, of course, was still the president of the BCFED then, but you launched a campaign, Fight for $15, looking for BC's minimum wage to go up to $15. You now have what appears to be, based on an Insights West poll, the support of 2/3 of British Columbians. Are you at all surprised?
No, I'm not surprised because we've been on the street a lot. We've had rallies. We've been talking to people. We have a lot of community groups that work with us on this campaign. And we really had a good sense that there was a lot of public support. It's lovely, wonderful to have that confirmed by polling, of course, but we knew we had lots of public support.
We're showing our viewers some of the findings of the poll. 58% of people polled say a significant higher increase is needed. 30%, actually, this is surprising to me, say $10.45 an hour is appropriate. 6% said no increase needed and 4% not sure. I still marvel that people can manage to get by on just $10.45 an hour. I was complaining on TV a couple weeks ago about the price of cauliflower being $4 a head. Where does that $10.45 an hour put people in comparison to the poverty line?
It puts them $6,000 below the poverty line annually. So it is really, and one of the great things about this poll is that almost 80% of British Columbians believe that people earning minimum wage should be at or above the poverty line. And that's been our main argument, that work should lift you out of poverty, not keep you there. And so we were really happy about that result because it is a very compelling argument. So people on minimum wage are living in poverty, and so many of them are working 2 jobs or not buying adequate groceries for their kids, certainly not providing the kinds of experiences for their kids that people with more money can provide that help with their education and development as children. I mean, I come from a teaching background, and so one of the things I go to on the poverty front is kids and the impact on kids. And it is a significant impact on kids. 1 in 5 in this province who live in poverty.
Which is shocking when you think of how wealthy much of British Columbia is. I want to show the audience statistics or really the numbers of what minimum wage is like right across this country, because I think this is something that our government hangs its hat on. And if you look at those prices, we aren't behind of very many other provinces. We're in that ballpark area, and really there's only a couple, Ontario, Northwest Territories, and Inuit, where the wage is higher than what we offer in British Columbia. So how do you convince the government that they are wrong?
Well, there's 2 or 3 points I'd make on that. The first is that by the end of this year, with the increases scheduled to happen in the country, we will be 10th. And that's not the middle of the pack. We will be 10th of 13, including the territories, right? So we're 10th, not in the middle. That's the first point I would make. The second point I would make is that Seattle's doing it, San Francisco's doing it, parts of the hospitality industry in LA, SeaTac is already there. They're all communities that have a plan for a minimum wage. And we think that with the highest cost of living in the country, in British Columbia, we should be a leader on this issue. And Instead of a leader, we're the only province without a poverty reduction plan, a piece of which is a raise to the minimum wage. So we would like to see British Columbia lead the way, as Seattle, San Francisco, and SeaTac are doing.
I think many of the companies who pay minimum wage quite happily are the giant corporations who hire teenagers, are happy to hire immigrants. But what do you say to the small business owner who is trying to get their business going, feed their family, and also hire a couple of employees who may well suffer if the minimum wage is increased?
Well, we say that's not true. Small businesses don't suffer when the minimum wage is increased because the economy does better when workers have money in their pockets. So if you raise the minimum wage from $10.25 to $15 an hour, that extra $4.75 gets spent in the economy, much of it at small businesses. There are plenty of small businesses that pay above the minimum wage. That's one of the points I'd make, because they don't want the turnover, they want to keep their staff, and they value their staff. So I want to make sure we honor the small businesses who do pay their employees well. Then the small businesses who are in the food industry have to compete with big companies paying the minimum wage. Some of them, we had a small business owner at our launch in November who said, I'd like to pay better, but it's difficult for me to compete with the big companies who pay the minimum wage. So when you raise the minimum wage, you drive all of those wages up, and everybody does better because those workers have money to spend in both small businesses and bigger stores.
Irene Lanzinger, president of the BC Federation of Labour, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jill.
And for more on this, joining me in studio, Trish Garner with the BC Poverty Reduction Coalition. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jill.
We wanted you to come in to talk to us about not the minimum wage specifically. That was coincidental that the Insights West poll came out, but about the things like a raise in BC hydro rates. Provincial governments love to say it's just 6%. Have a look. Over the course of a year, it's only this much money. But if you're living in poverty, how much more difficult is it to deal with that kind of a raise, a hike in the rate?
Well, it has a significant impact on our poorest in BC. And I think we also need to consider that it's 6% today, but if we think about the series of increases, it's actually 20% of an increase over the 3 years and almost 30% over 5 years. So that, of course, has a significant impact on our low-income people in BC. And that makes sense if you think about their incomes that have continue to be set well below the poverty line and have stagnated. Today's actually the anniversary of the last increase to welfare and disability rates. With no joke there, it's been 8 years since we've had an increase. So it's at $610. So if you think about...
So in those 8 years, a whole bunch of things have gotten more expensive. Never mind cost of living, but then also increases in anything that the government, doles out. Healthcare, hydro has also gotten more expensive, and those people have had literally no raise.
Exactly. Yes. So MSP has gone up considerably in that time. Hydro rates, all of these basic needs around health, heating have gone up, while the 610 has stayed frozen there. So for people trying to survive on that, every dollar really counts, and these increases really hurt those people.
And for a lot of us, you cut out things. We were showing the prices of a ferry trip. If you're living at the poverty level, you're probably not riding the ferry a whole lot.
Right.
But everybody needs to heat, where they live. Alcohol's another one. It can be discretionary spending, but some people are addicted, and then that becomes, they themselves impose that upon themselves and their own budget in spending money on that. What do you think the solution is? There is some discussion about raising income tax rates, and governments are loath to do that. Politicians know the minute they come with a flat, all right, your income tax is going up, they lose votes. But they're essentially doing the same thing. It's just piecemeal.
Exactly. And actually, it would be better to raise income taxes because our income tax system is what we call a progressive tax system. So as your income goes up, you pay more of a share. So that's fair. I think most British Columbians agree. Whereas these flat fees that we're seeing with the MSP increases and the hydro increases, that's regressive. That's not fair because it actually affects lower income people more than higher income if we think about the share of their income. And it also, in terms of hydro, it affects lower income people more because generally they're living in bad housing. They're living in places that aren't well insulated, single pane windows, really old, inefficient heaters. So they're already paying a lot more for their heating. So these increases are really going to add to that.
Irene Lanzinger mentioned children. She is a former teacher. She knows, you know, used to greet those little smiling faces. It really disappoints me how incredibly high our child poverty is in BC.
Yes.
What more can be done?
Well, as Irene mentioned, we're now the last province without a poverty reduction plan in place. So that's what we'd like to see, and we have a lot of support around the province for that. And a plan would include, as Irene said, increasing the minimum wage, of course. It would include increasing welfare and disability rates, but also addressing some of the cost of living side, so more affordable housing, a universal childcare system. Childcare is getting increasingly unaffordable. Healthcare costs, education costs. So it would really go across the board.
You've just described life. You've just talked about everything we all consume and pay for. I mean,
exactly.
It's really a shame because, as I said, there are many wealthy people who live in this province. The dispersal of the wealth is, you know, slanted.
Yes.
And I think it should be embarrassing to British Columbians that we have such a high child poverty rate.
It really should. I mean, as well as having one of the highest poverty rates in Canada, as you say, it's skewed. So we actually have one of the highest inequality levels in Canada. So the biggest gap between rich and poor. So a lot of these measures could, what we've been seeing is a general shift from higher income folks paying less and lower income folks paying more, and businesses, corporations paying less and individuals paying more. So we really need to ask those tough questions of government. Who's funding them, their public services? And we want to, because they provide a lot for us and our families. And it's increasingly lower income, middle income people. And then who's actually benefiting from that? And that's increasingly higher income people.
All righty, Trish Garner, BC Poverty Reduction Coalition, thank you.
Thanks very much.